Jason, welcome to the program. I want to start with something you just wrote for Outkick. President Trump's Dragon Energy entices Ice Cube, Kanye West, 50 Cent, and other black men. 12 years ago, when I trashed Sarah Palin in a Huffington Post column and across social media on a daily basis, no one cared. No one told me to stick to sports. Although a non-voter, my preference for Barack Obama and Joe Biden was quite clear. I'm still a non-voter. But my preference for Donald Trump and Mike Pence now is quite clear. My critics passionately want me to stick to sports. My presidential preference is now offensive. I've sold out. I've changed. I'm a hypocrite. This Wednesday, I visited the White House to interview President Trump. I wanted to probe him on why black voters, particularly black men, seem to be breaking from the facade that he is the grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. What's happening, Jason? What's happening in the black community?
Well, I really believe the facts are starting to speak for themselves, and that Donald Trump's record of accomplishment, particularly as it relates to African Americans, speaks for itself. That he actually has a record to stand on, unlike even Barack Obama. When he was president, I don't think he had much of a record to stand on in terms of, hey, what did he actually deliver for African Americans? President Trump has things he can stand on, and beyond that, I think black people understand when he starts talking about black unemployment rate and America's unemployment rate, and then when you just add in for black men, the facade we've been putting on as it relates to President Trump is embarrassing, to be quite honest with you, just because we have celebrated him in hip hop music.
Yeah,
we have been friends with him and socialized with him in every way possible. From Oprah Winfrey to Jesse Jackson to just any number of African American celebrities. And, this whole thing that he's, some flaming racist, it just doesn't ring true. And people are having to deal with that reality. And I think for black men, it's just his masculinity, his fearlessness. It just resonates and rings true to us.
Jason, I got a lot of heat for saying, I don't know, about 6 or maybe as long as a year ago, I said that Donald Trump is the alpha male and that he is one of the only examples in public life outside of sports, perhaps, that is an alpha, that doesn't mind saying, yeah, I'm a man, I'm all man. And you may not like the way he manifests that in some ways, but he's not ashamed of it. And we're living in a culture where we are told to be women. Men are told to be women, or damn near, and he's not. He's not. And I think that plays a role in the psyche of a lot of men.
I think without question, we've been on this tangent that like everything masculine is evil,
right,
it's toxic, and that's just not true. And I think for men and a segment of the female population, I think a pretty large segment, we just don't buy that. We understand that American freedoms were won through masculinity, and there is a way to be responsibly masculine.
Yes.
And there's a way to be irresponsibly masculine. And we need to get rid of the irresponsible, but to paint all masculinity as toxic and evil and a detriment to the country is just wrong. And I just, people aren't buying into it. And look, I think the Black Lives Matter, rioting, looting, disrespect, when you have any sort, just 10% Christian values, 5%, Black Lives Matters and all what we've seen all summer, it just doesn't jibe with any kind of Christian values or faith-based values.
American values.
American values. But let's say you want to have some anti-American sentiment, because listen, I love my mother. She's a hardcore Democrat. She tossed me over a bridge for Barack Obama. But I'm constantly questioning her, like, hey, how do these policies coincide with our religious faith? This is what's been at the foundation of our family. This is why you took me to church every Sunday as a kid. This is why I was baptized. These things that you're supporting politically, it's so crystal clear now, they don't coincide with our religious faith.
What does she say?
She doesn't have a great answer. She just gets frustrated, and she thinks that she's been convinced that racism is the sin above all sins. And I'm not trying to diminish racism, but it is just a sin. And when I say just a sin, it's no greater, worse than any other sin. And sin, and it's like I explained, I was like, look, you understand the biblical teaching. Sin entered the world. Unfairness entered the world. And if someone gets angry and says the wrong word, that does not mean they're not human. That just means they're a sinner like you. I've heard you say the wrong word. But does that really drive your actions on a daily basis? And so we've made racism how you judge people. And the media can define almost anything as racist.
So
anything can be a dog whistle.
So, but how do you? Have you said to your mom what you said last week about Antifa being, the modern day Klan?
Of course, yeah, but people live in their own little bubbles, and again, when you live in a bubble framed for you by MSNBC and CNN,
yeah.
She doesn't, Antifa, maybe I heard something about it. Joe Biden said it was an idea. She doesn't know what's going on in Portland and Seattle every day. She doesn't know that there are paid, organized protesters looting and burning down these cities.
Yeah.
She doesn't know because that doesn't get into her bubble. And listen, what I've explained to her, and I've spoken at the church I grew up in, and I've explained to them, because I still financially support the church I grew up in, but I'm like, we can't let politics become our religion.
Amen.
We can't, and I've asked my mother all the time, and I finally got her to quit, but I was like, you can't talk about Trump and Obama more than you talk about God. That's not, we can't be that. And some of it is starting to get through, and it's funny, Glenn. President Trump gave me a present to give to my mother. And I told my mother this when I came back I said, he gave you a key to the White House. It's very nice. I'm going to send it to you. And she thought I was joking. And I was like, no, Mom, I'm serious. And so literally her reaction was like, she didn't think President Trump was capable of an act of kindness. That's how much TV, and my mom's 80, and so, she's at home. She's like a lot of old people watching a lot of TV, and it kind of shook her up a little bit, like, oh, my God, this guy is a human being.
It's like, but Jason, it's weird because I get that reaction. I get that reaction from people who meet me. I mean, I had a guy that hated me so much that came into a meeting with me. His hands were shaking. He called me the devil when we first sat down. 45 minutes into it, he said, wow, I mean, you are nice. You're a nice guy. And he felt bad. He told everybody after I left the meeting how badly he felt about saying those things. People just don't believe that conservatives, for one, and in some ways, Democrats are decent people. We just make them into these monsters. If you're on that side, you're a monster.
That is the power of social media. And I keep explaining to people, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, they're some of the most secular places on earth. And we've reduced everyone to a tweet that we disagree with.
Yes.
And we used to not be that way. We used to. I find it like James Carville's wife. They were on different sides of the political aisle.
I know.
And it's like we've illegalized all of that.
I know.
And we used to live in a time where people could disagree politically, still see the humanity of each other, still love each other enough to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, oh, if we disagree politically, you're the worst human being on the world. That is how much social media and the mainstream media have divided us. We've defined each other on different sides of the political stripe as evil. And take someone like me, Glenn. I'm not political. I've never voted. It drives my parents crazy.
Well, it drives me crazy too. I wanted to ask you that. Why have you never voted?
Because I don't believe in politicians. I am a person of my word. And so if I say, hey, I'm going to do something, I'm really going to do it. And I'm going to hold you to that expectation. Politicians don't stick to their word. And this is why, and it's taken me time to realize, it's taken me 3.5 years to realize it, like the reason why I kind of halfway like Trump, he's not a politician. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh my God, the stuff that he actually said he was going to do, he's actually tried to do it and has done a lot of it. That has made me, I've waited too late to register to vote here in Tennessee. If I hadn't, I think I'm to the point I would have voted this election. Because I actually believe the guy. He, whether I agree or disagree, it's like, oh man, the stuff he says,
Jason,
he's going to do.
I have to tell you, he called me, a year ago when I first started saying, maybe a year and a half ago, when I first started saying I was wrong about him. And I was wrong about him because I didn't think he'd keep any of his promises because he was he's a businessman in New York and there's no way he's going to keep his promises. And I started saying on the air, he kept his promises and I think he's actually doing a good job. And he called me and he, thanked me for that. And I said, no, you don't have to thank me. It's my responsibility as a decent human being to call him as I see him. And I didn't like you at the beginning, and I didn't think that you were going to do anything, but you did, and so I've got to admit that. And I said, but that doesn't mean I like everything. I said, your trade policy. He talked to me for probably 25 or 30 minutes about trade policy. He asked me really intelligent questions. He went back and forth with me, and in the end, he said, yeah, I just like trade policies, so I'm still going to do them. He didn't say to my face what every other politician has ever said. Well, you know what? I'm going to think about that. He didn't. He just said, I don't agree with you. And I loved that. I love that.